Is November 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving, Wednesday. My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your legislative update for the day. A couple things I wanted to talk to you about today. The first is the sexual harassment, sexual assault situation. So as many of you have heard, I'm sure all of you have heard, there's been a lot of incidents in Hollywood and the press, both TV and newsrooms, and now in politics regarding men using their positions of power to prey in some way, shape, or form on women. In fact, you've heard about the president's situations where he's been accused of assault and admitted grabbing women by the genitalia. You heard about this Moore character in Alabama, as well as, frankly, Democrats, Al Franken, and this last thing with Representative Conyers the last couple of days. You've also had the USA Today yesterday on their front page talk about 40 different lawmakers in 20 states accused by over 100 women of various forms of harassment. And I have actually heard anecdotally stories close to me by women that I know personally, as well as some of the folks in the legislature, some of the most graphic stories being from the 70s. And at the end of the day, these actions are immoral, they are wrong, and in some cases they're downright illegal. What we have to say is this is not acceptable, and it's up to men like me specifically to come out strongly and say this kind of culture where people are harassed and sometimes physically molested is not going to be the way it is anymore, right? And so I actually approached yesterday the Chief of Staff for the Speaker of the House and said, if you all are going to do sexual harassment training to help us deal with this, I want to be first on the list for you to sign me up. This is something that all of us need to be more sensitive on, even if we think we've done nothing in the past, especially for guys like me who've never actually had to experience it. We should know what it's like. And I talked with the head of the Democratic Party, who just in the last couple of days said that all candidates in the Democratic Party this year in New Mexico will have to go through some kind of training or not have the cooperation of the party. I told him I fully supported him and, said, is there anything else I can do? So we're working on that to make that a situation that doesn't happen in the legislature. Look, in government, in democracy, especially at the state legislature, no one should feel that they are not taken seriously, like they are being treated as a second-class citizen. Everyone should be able to come in there and feel like they have an equal say. That's what democracy is really supposed to be, and we need to do a much better job striving for that and not taking any of these harassment claims lightly or flippantly, and really working on making an environment that everyone can feel like they can participate in. So there's that. Second thing I want to talk to you about is the federal tax policy that is they're working on in Washington and Congress, where they're trying to reform a lot of the tax code and how that will affect our district. We had a presentation 2 days ago by the head of the New Mexico Tax Policy Research Organization, Richard Anklum, who went down through the Senate version of the bill. There's two of these, and this might not pass and it might change, but currently, for a lot of the folks here, you're going to get a small increase in your taxes if your average income is between $20,000 and I think $40,000. Now that will hopefully be offset by a deduction that they're going to do, but there's two really huge changes that will affect you in some way. The first is New Mexico's tax code piggybacks off the federal government. So if we don't change our tax code in the upcoming session, you will almost definitely pay more taxes, because what they're doing at the federal level is lowering the rate, but getting rid of a bunch of deductions. If we don't figure out how to lower our rate, then you won't get those same deductions and pay more taxes. The problem with that is if they do this before, say, Christmas, we're only going to have a couple of weeks before our legislative session starts in January to try to figure out what's going on in there, and that's a real issue. The way that Anklum put it, he said they're in a hurry, and when you are in a hurry, you make mistakes. We don't know what that's going to be, but it's something we're going to have to deal with. There's two other issues. The first is that in the federal tax cuts, they're cutting corporate taxes and individual taxes, but the individual taxes are actually temporary while the corporate ones are permanent, and that sends a really, in my opinion, bad message to people that, people who are in corporations and their kind of wealth and power is really important, and families aren't as important because they're only being temporarily dropped down. It also will increase the federal debt. That's basically, at the end of the day, what Richard Anklum's assessment was, is they're raising the federal debt 1.5 $1.5 trillion to give all these corporate tax cuts. And if that actually happens, it's going to put pressure on a lot of programs, because remember, we don't live in a land of unicorns and rainbows. That money's got to come from somewhere, like Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, the military. The one I like to throw out there is the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Those are the people that predict hurricanes. If they don't have the money to do their jobs, then that becomes a real big issue. So please pay attention to that, because it does affect us here in New Mexico a lot. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns with these or any of the issues, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching this. I hope everyone has a spectacularly wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. Bye.